Okay. All right. And so I've got a special guest, Jennifer Ward, and
Hi.
I'm going to let her take it away in picking your market virtually and investing not in the state you're in. And then if there's any because she's not a wholesaler, but if there's any gaps or anything in there, any questions you have, like how do we apply this to wholesaling, just let me know and I can chime in and
Yeah.
connect the
Well,
dots.
hi. Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to talk about choosing different markets and analyzing different markets. My name is Jennifer Ward, and I live in Denver, but I invest in Indianapolis. I've been traditionally, more of a buy and hold investor, but now I'm starting to do flips. So I'm trying to connect with wholesalers right now, actually, and then getting a little desperate. So might have to try to generate leads on my own at one point. So I might have to come on this group to learn more about it, how to get into the wholesaler mindset to just find deals for myself, frankly. But hopefully today I can help out if if your market is like mine in Denver, it's super hot, super pricey, um, and you want to try to do wholesaling in another market. I'm going to talk about how I went about choosing a different market that was a good fit for me. So, again, most of this is from the perspective of, someone being as an investor looking for rental properties. So, all right. I think, can you see? I assume you can see my presentation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
man, you gotta outdo me like that. Like,
Uh-huh.
oh,
Fiber all the way. Let's see. I don't usually use my slide. Where where do I go to like present? Oh,
oh, up
here.
at the
Oh, it's
top.
up in
Yeah.
this corner. Thanks. All right. Present from the beginning. Okay, so and I have REI mamas up here because I kind of have like a small little thing I'm starting up trying to help other moms get into real estate investing. So that's why you see that. So I'm going to kind of skip through this part, asking why you should invest long distance. But I did it for cash flow reasons because Denver was not a very good cash flowing market. So I wanted to find other areas to cash flow. But so I guess if most of the folks on here, if your intent is to be a wholesaler, you just like hopefully coming up soon, I need to put myself in the perspective of a wholesaler to find some off market deals. You might want to put yourself in the perspective of your end user, right? The investor, and what makes a good market for them, which will ultimately be a good market for you because you'll be able to sell them properties easily. And so when deciding what makes a good market, these were some of the variables that I focused on when doing a market analysis. So rent to value was obviously one of the most important variable factors. Um, every investor has their own criteria. They might they might try to do the ROI or whatnot, but I just kind of went with like the very quick and easy calculation of am I getting at least 1% in rent of the ARV, of the after repair value or the home value if it's already in good condition. So 1% is my minimum. I usually try to get 1.5 to 2%, which I can do, fairly easily in Indianapolis. But Denver, no way am I even meeting the 1% of rent to home value. So I was looking for markets that had similar percentage of 1 to 2%. Also, what things that I considered was the insurance, like the average insurance premium you have to pay on a property to the home value as well. Because obviously that's a must. You need to have insurance if you own a property for any accidents that could occur, unless you're just, a gajillionaire and can just buy the property again if it burns down, no big deal. But for most of us, that's a big deal. So I want to have my insurance. So seeing like what markets have fairly low insurance premiums was important. Taxes to value, I mean, that's going to be a huge factor for any investor. You know, they don't want all of their cash flow going to pay off taxes. Well, I guess, I mean, that would take away from the cash flow, is what I'm saying. So, finding lower property tax areas is really enticing, you know, for any investor. Um, Also, I want to make sure wherever I invest, it's affordable for my tenants. So what's the rent to income ratio in that market? Um, I did hear, you know, on some podcasts here and there that uh, when the recession hit, generally the investments that were earning about $700 to $1,000 in rent per month did the best because it was still a manageable rent to pay for their tenants in, you know, in that given market. If you start getting above 1,000, it can get kind of dicey when it comes to tough times if that rent is going to be paid or not. So anyways, but I looked, usually like most qualifications for a lot of property management companies or landlords is, you know, they want the tenants to be making 3 times the rent. So is the income 3 times normally the rent in that area, for the average rent in that area. Also, you know, some pretty obvious variables to look into when analyzing markets is the population growth. You know, is it a growing city? Is it a growing area, or are people moving away from it? You know, I guess if you're starting to see like a lot of people trying to sell their house for an investor, that could be kind of a red flag. You know, but I guess it's all a matter of where are they moving to? Are they hopefully just selling their house to move to another house nearby in the same city, or are they trying to sell to get out of town? So want to make sure it's a growing population. That plays in with unemployment, of course. You know, how's the unemployment rate in the area that you're looking to find deals? Is it generally high compared to the rest of the country or nearby markets, or is it low? Because obviously the lower it is, the more attractive it will be. Appreciation, honestly, yes, that's a nice perk. I always see appreciation as icing on the cake, but I don't use it as my full criteria when looking at rental properties. Just because you can't predict it necessarily. And again, I'm all about cash flow, so that's my particular strategy. And then crime. You know, I look at it kind of citywide. How does this city compare to other cities in the country? Of course, with crime, you have to take that with a grain of salt, you know, because it doesn't really factor in like what kind of crime is played in there. If it's a lot of just like petty crime, misdemeanor type stuff, I wouldn't be concerned about it as an investor. But if it's more hard crime, then you know that you definitely want to be cautious of making sure you're not getting a property in, you know, what they call the war zones, of course, and having to deal with that kind of crime on a regular basis. So those were some variables, and then here's some other variables I factored in as well when analyzing markets. So property management fees. So as a buy and hold investor, you know, that's especially if I'm doing this long distance like I am, it's pretty much guaranteed that I'm going to need a property manager. I mean, unless you've been doing it for a while in a particular market, then you can kind of venture and maybe manage it yourself if you already have a good group of contacts. But for the most part, you're going to need a property manager, and you want to know what like those fees are for that on average for that city. So in Indianapolis, you know, it usually starts off with 10%, but have other investor colleagues who are investing in Memphis where it's on average 8%. So that helps the cash flow, a little bit better than it would in Indy. Um, Also, I'm going to kind of skip over to rental property expectations. So is the market, the tenants, do they expect to have appliances? In your market, it might be a given, but I have found other markets where it's not required. You don't have to have a refrigerator or a stove provided to the tenant, that they're expected to bring that in on their own. Sounds kind of crazy, but to me initially, but as an investor, I'm like, wow, that sounds really attractive. Because if your stove breaks, then that's a good $500 you're paying out, and that's taken away from your cash flow. Um, Another important factor are the industries. So in the city that you're finding deals, is there a diverse amount of industries at play there? Or is it a market that's solely focused around a military base, or solely focused around um, a university? Everybody has their own criteria when looking at markets, but for me, I think it creates a more solid market, a more solid investment when you have a diverse amount of industries in that area. So that way, if one particular industry were to decide to move or close up, then the they may then they're not your employer, or sorry, like not all of your tenants are employed by that particular industry. So, you have other industries to fall back on, is what I'm trying to say. Tenant landlord laws, that's pretty important to any investor. They generally gravitate towards a landlord friendly areas. So if the market you're in is very tenant friendly, then, it may not be a desirable area for particularly buy and hold investors. Maybe flippers, but potentially not buy and hold. Um, and then I like to make sure that a market that I'm investing in has multiple service providers. So, for example, multiple property managers, has a good variety of different large brokerages to work with as far as the realtors go. A lot of contractors to choose from. So, in essence, I like more of like the middle to larger size cities versus like the rural areas where I'm only might have one, maybe two property managers to choose from if it's a rental property. So, um, and I'm happy to answer questions. I don't know if there's any questions that come in. Um,
I want to say, just to make sure that it's clear that, like, so, as wholesalers, we're not going to be paying for the property management or finding tenants or service providers, but the cash buyers that we sell these properties to are going to be looking for these things. So
right.
you've got to think about what they want in the end. Like, for example, how you get a house in a neighborhood, because neighborhoods and subdivisions is where they want to buy, because that's where families want to move in. They don't want stuff
Mhm.
on the main road. And it's the same thing with that. You want them to have low property management fees, good rental properties areas there. Like Georgia, they love uh, landlords here a little too much. I had one lady ask me, like, "Are you going to come in the middle of the night and check to see if all the dishes and towels are folded?" And I said, "Nope, I'm not doing that." But
Wow.
so you've got to think about these things to know what your cash buyers are going to want. Because if you get a place that's only got one service provider and has tenant uh, favors the tenant in terms of the laws, like I think like New York, the city, New York,
Hmm.
um, and low property management fees. Because if you have high fees, nobody's going to want to buy your wholesale deal, and also HOAs too, I think. So think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm coming from the perspective more of a bird's eye view, going in, trying to find a city to invest in. And then once you choose that city, obviously you have more defined criteria of what kind of neighborhood you want to be in. So it might be a neighborhood with school scores at least a 4 and up. Things like that. And then you would focus also more on the crime. Like, okay, I know that Indianapolis is not generally a high crime city, not as much as New York or LA, of course, but I also want to make sure that I'm going into a neighborhood that is relatively safe because every city has their pockets, right? So, and that's kind of probably what, as a wholesaler, you want to keep in mind, like what areas are going to be the most attractive to your end buyer, if it's a buy and hold investor, or I assume a flipper, if you're selling to a flipper, they're thinking who their end buyer is, which is ultimately, your end buyer too. So the long-term homeowner that's going to buy that home, and what's going to be important to them. So, but again, this is like from a bird's eye view, trying to pick out what city. So, in case your market is maybe not the most appealing to investors, how you can go about choosing a market that is. So for this information that I just went over, all the variables, these are the resources I used to find that data. So Value Penguin helped with the insurance premiums. How reliable it is, I can't say, but it gave me, a nugget of information, but I take everything with a grain of salt. World Population Review, obviously that gave me my population information, but also so does citydata.com and neighborhoodscout.com. Both of those sites give a variety of data. That's where you can find the average home value, the average rent, the average income, the average size of the houses there. It'll give you crime information. So they give you a lot. And with Neighborhood Scout, you can buy into more advanced data if you wanted to. And then, of course, Bigger Pockets to pull some of the anecdotal information, to network with other investors or folks working in that market to find out, what's the average or property management fee. Because that's not really something you may pull from a data site. So you just kind of have to figure out anecdotally, what's the expectations of, the renters in that area? Do you have to provide appliances kind of thing? So, all right, so those were the resources I used. And then this is like when I finally pulled all my analysis together. So, I won't go into it too much, but I did this is from my 2018 numbers, and these were some cities that I had heard about along the way of getting started into my investing career, listening to the podcast, reading forums, listening to or reading blogs, all of that. These were kind of popular cities I was hearing popping up. Maybe not Albuquerque, but I'm in Denver, and Albuquerque, you would hear from time to time from people who are Denver investors, or people living in Denver investing in locations that aren't too far away. So, if you want to look at the chart, so rent to value, Cleveland had the best rent to value. But if you want to look to taxes to value, Cleveland had the worst. So that's why I crossed out Cleveland. So just because it has the best rent to value, because like there in Cleveland, you buy a house for $50,000, you're paying $2,000 a year in taxes, and so it just kind of eats away at your cash flow. Rent to income, Albuquerque is apparently the most affordable, but Indianapolis wasn't far from that. So, and it turns out Cleveland apparently was probably the least affordable for tenants out of these cities. And then appreciation, Cleveland was declining, and so that was another red flag for me. And who had the best was Minneapolis. Um, and Indianapolis just kind of ranked right in the middle. So overall, the reason I personally chose Indianapolis is because I was looking for a boring market, a very predictable market, very neutral market. And Indianapolis just kind of made a flat line almost through the whole chart. And that's why I chose Indianapolis. But every investor has their, their own reasons. But, in my group, I tend to come across a lot of them that just want cash flow and want predictability. So if you're in a market that has good cash flow and is pretty stable and predictable, doesn't have peaks and dips for the last 10 years, but has just gone, then I think it's going to be attractive to a lot of buy and hold investors. So yeah, I won't go into the rest of it because it just kind of talks about my experience in Indianapolis. But I figured I'd stop there. But if anybody wants to kind of get this more information about this and connect with other investors, so I have a Facebook group called Long Distance Real Estate Investors. And we're it's primarily investors, I would say. I'm sure we have some wholesalers here and there, but we would love to have more. So if you're looking for investors to buy your leads, buy your deals, um, I hope this platform will be a good connection for you because I'm always looking for wholesalers myself. So. And then if you want to connect with me directly, my email is jennifer@reimamas.com. And I have some social media sites, but I haven't done anything with it because it's still pretty new. I've been doing a lot more with my long distance real estate investors group than I have with REI Mamas so far. But you can certainly email me and happy to connect and share some insight on choosing markets. So. That's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
I've been to Indianapolis before, and it was to some of the conferences that they have, and they were
Mhm.
telling me, the other people that were there, um, that it's a lot of conferences and they have conventions there.
Yeah.
Um, are you doing anything with that, like buying that like space near the convention, like maybe an Airbnb or anything?
Yeah, I personally haven't done Airbnbs in Indianapolis, though I know it is a strong market for Airbnbs. Yes. And generally I have experience with short-term rental and generally short-term rentals provide um, a higher return on investment because for example if you're able to rent a house for $1,000 a month to a more traditional long-term tenant through Airbnb you could get double that 2,000 maybe 2,500 so I personally think from a wholesaler perspective people who are trying to do short-term rentals would be good candidates for any deals that might have just skinny margins, just because they can get the return on their investment a lot quicker than they could a traditional buy and hold investor. But that being said, it's all about location, so it has to be a property that has decent walking score, that they can walk to maybe a few restaurants or to a coffee shop or things like that. And of course, better if it's a city that has some venues that attract tourism, being close to those. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Um, I think too, if I think it'd be much easier for, I think we have two groups that do Airbnb. So if you want to go into a virtual market with Airbnb, I think you should, take some of these notes, but then also go in and take the notes from those super groups when they meet, because they've got like software that'll tell you everything on like how the
Yeah.
Airbnb market is.
Yeah, there's a website I know, Airbnb DNA or something like that, or AirDNA.
Yeah.
Um, it provides some great analysis information, is what I've been told. Oh, and real quick, I should have mentioned this since we are doing this through the REI USA platform. I still have to get used to that because I'm a teacher as well on REI USA. So every last Tuesday of the month, I share about long distance real estate investing and I highlight a different market. So if you are looking for a different market to do wholesale, then I encourage you to come join us every last Tuesday of the month. So this month we're going to talk about Oklahoma City, and that's actually a very strong market in my opinion so far for what I know about it.
That's March 30th.
March 23rd, I think, is the last Tuesday.
And what time is it at?
It's at 6 Mountain Standard Time, so 8 Eastern.
Yeah, I still got to get used to that, like different time zones.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have to think about it every day with my long distance group because
Yeah, yeah, especially if you're doing everything like in different states, different time zones.
right, right. Yeah, I'm always working with the Eastern time zone, so it would make it a little bit easier if I just lived there, but yeah. I guess it's nice also to be kind of 2 hours early or later than them.
Yeah, yeah, Georgia, I think New York Eastern Standard Time I think is the best because everything that anyone else does early in the morning ends up being like late, so I don't have to get up until, at least an hour after whenever the time is.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
That's true. Yeah, so
So I was virtually wholesaling I was in Dallas, and I had the one guy, he was doing acquisition, he was meeting with the sellers, he was getting them under contract, but then he was also meeting with the buyers, and he was getting them under contract as well. And he just ghosted me one day because
oh,
he was doing all of it. He realized he didn't need me.
oh,
Then I went to
bummer.
Fort Worth, which is I lucked out and had like there were two cities in Dallas,
Hmm.
and so I went to Fort Worth, which is right next to Dallas, and they call it DFW, so it's
Yep.
Dallas Fort Worth. It's basically one big mega
Mhm.
city.
Yeah, I
And
used to live in Dallas actually for a
yeah,
period of
and
time.
it was like nobody was looking in this other little city that was right next to Dallas. And the reason I picked Texas and Dallas was that they had the same foreclosure dates that we did. It's the first Tuesday of the month that the auction comes up, and then the home values were the same. Um, but I didn't even think to look at any of this stuff. I guess I lucked out on some of them. Uh,
Yeah.
I still don't even know if Fort Worth
Dallas
had
is
any of
a
that.
Are you in Dallas or
No,
you said
I'm in
Atlanta,
I'm in Atlanta. Well, I'm in
right?
Powder Springs, which is northwest of Atlanta.
Okay.
But I was virtually there, and then I was virtually in Orlando as well. And um, it was rough because I can't fly in a plane like because my lung collapsed when I was in school, so I can't go in that pressurized environment.
Oh, geez.
Uh, so I had to have people go out there and do it. Uh,
Hmm.
and I'd say that's probably a good thing because a lot of my friends that go virtually, they're always well, before the Rona took over, they were flying to those states and making sure everything was running smooth and putting out fires. But yeah.
Well, I'm very interested to hear how this virtual wholesaling works.
Well, so essentially what it was is I was trying to, I was putting ads out, and this guy came in and was like, well, I find deals all the time, and I was like, all right, well, why don't you find the deals, you contact them because you need somebody there. And in Georgia, they would always ask me like, they'd be like, you know where the catfish den is? And I'd be like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. I'm right past the catfish den. Well, actually, I'm right next to Travis Tritt on the right, past the catfish den. And they'd be like, "Oh, okay." They'd like check you to make sure you know the area. And so I was like, well, I need somebody in, this other state in Dallas, who knows the area. And so I was like, well, why don't we just agree to split the profit? You find the sellers, I'll have you find the buyers. Now in Fort Worth, I had a lady find the sellers, and I had a guy find the buyers, and I made sure they never met each other.
Mm,
So, um,
yeah.
but just having boots on the ground, as they say, to get the
Okay.
property under contract, take pictures, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was it. That was really all you needed.
Okay.
And
Well,
then
yeah, I definitely need to learn more about all that because actually, because every market's so hot right now, and indie included, it's just really hard to find deals, and so I'm trying to do more flips, and um, the wholesalers in indie so far that I mean the main wholesalers like because there's always usually 2 to 3 big time wholesalers in every city, and the deals that they were showing just weren't enough or just weren't great deals, and so probably because I got the last slim pickings, they have their preferred buyers list. So you should do something about how to work with wholesalers, how to get on that preferred buyers list, and get the best deals from the wholesalers. I would really be needing. I could really use that information. But so, anyways, I just went ahead and decided to build that website to generate my own leads to use for myself, and I'm not in Indianapolis, obviously. So, but I felt comfortable going ahead and creating a website just to. I haven't done much with it yet, but my intent is, just use my team that I've developed over the years to be my boots on the ground. So once I get a lead in, I can ask them to go and meet with the seller, have my contractor go out there and potentially one other person that's part of my team, have them meet with the seller, and then hopefully can close a deal that way. So I don't know if that's is considered a long shot or what do you think?
no, I mean that's what it is here. Like when I would be going in person is, I mean, my first deal ever, the guy had shorts and flip flops on, and I think his wife had a wife beater on or a tank top, and um, I had on a full suit and a tie, and I think I had a ponytail at the time. And he was like, "Oh, you got your Sunday best on," and it was like 90 degrees, and I had to work that day. But yeah, it was just showing up and talking to them and seeing what they want and being their
Hmm.
best buddy. Uh,
Yeah. Do you think they'd be interested in like talking to me about most of the details like over the phone or like a Zoom call, but then having my team, like my contractor, walk through the property and see if it's, a good property? Or do they
yeah.
prefer to, or do you think they would shy away from that and rather talk to someone on the ground about the more
So
the
yeah,
details?
I've been at deals before where I've had paper contracts and pre-COVID, and they would have Bluetooth headsets on, and they would actually have other wholesalers there, and they wouldn't tell you, but they'd be trying to run a bunch of they do open house,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, I'm the one who suggested this time, so they must have called some other people and said, hey, come at this same time too. And they come through with their Bluetooth headsets, and they're like, "Yeah, Mr. Seller, what's your email? I'll DocuSign the agreement." And they'd be like, "Wait, wait, wait. Okay, what is there a mortgage?" They'd be like, it was like they were talking to their mentor on their
Oh, I
Bluetooth.
see.
And I would pull
Okay.
out the paper contract and get the deal, and we would sign it on the trunk of their car. So you definitely need somebody there in person.
Right.
I would say probably not a contractor. I would take pictures or have the acquisition manager there take pictures and then have them send those to the contractor or
Okay.
bring the contractor back later, because when you have a contractor and a lot of times sometimes people will do this where they'll go through the house and they'll start picking off, like, oh, this is really bad and that's really bad. And they'll think that, oh, I'm pointing out bad things. therefore the seller's price is going to come down or what they want. But usually the seller just gets mad that you've gone through the house and just nitpicked everything like that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. Um, you sort of got to inception them a little bit and say,
Mhm.
oh man, they didn't install this copper in right, in this wall, and they didn't put the drywall up, and have them say, oh no, somebody stole it. And I'm like, ooh man, you
Mhm.
want them to say the thing that you want to get them to nitpick the house. They
Right.
think it's their idea that,
Right.
oh, it's
Yeah.
so nice. Why haven't you listed it with a realtor?
Mhm.
Oh, well, all the realtors, think it's not worth a whole lot. And, so you just keep basically, you get buddies with them and then get them to come up with the idea.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that
yeah.
feedback.
And
Because yeah, I was.
contractors just can't get that usually most of the time.
Yeah. 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 Because I have arranged with essentially like a partner, not a formal partner, but somebody who another woman who has been a property manager there for a long time, and she said that she could help me by being my boots on the ground and going and talking to the homeowner about the property and everything. But I just thought, well, I'll get the lead and then maybe I can call them and get some more information about it, and then schedule when my boots on the ground can go there and talk to them in more detail and take the pictures and everything.
Yeah.
So
And get them to take like 30, 40 pictures, like take a lot.
yeah, in a video.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, video. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I put it into a Google Drive, and then I can just
Mhm.
link the contractor to that Google Drive. They can give you an estimate. But most of the time, I end up just making an estimate myself.
Mhm.
Um, Stacy will take like 5,000. When she was doing rehab, she would say take everything is 5,000. So like new flooring, 5,000. Like new roof. I think the roof was the only thing that was like twice, so it'd be 10,000. And then she would say like, new appliances 5,000, and you would just count the number of things that needed to be fixed
That,
up, and you would
yeah,
times
that's a
it by
good
5.
strategy. I like that. Yeah. So
And of
just
course it's a little bit overestimating, but you'd rather better to overestimate what it's going to cost than to underestimate.
that's the truth.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then no, make sure that it's like you never want the acquisition manager to meet, the person that meets with the cash buyers. And usually the person that meets cash buyers can be like a realtor, uh,
Mhm.
and they can just get add their commission on top. So if you get those
Right.
emails of deals and it says just realtors put your commission on top, um, they can do that. And then they've got like a pocket list of buyers that they can show it to, as well as, people who've already spent cash before. Um, and then they can use their own, they can put up bandit signs and whatever the
Mhm.
realtors are already doing for other listings,
Right.
they can do for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right. As of right now, I'm just hoping to just do them for me, find the properties for me, and I'm going in it as well, trying to offer them multiple solutions, so not just doing a cash offer, but if maybe they're getting close to foreclosure and want to save their credit, offering subject to deals if it's a property that I think could be a decent buy and hold, or if they own their property almost outright and or they're a tired landlord, see if they want to do seller financing, so continue getting that monthly income, but um, not have to deal with any of the hassle of the house.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So what I started doing is I changed it from, uh, we want to buy your house, or I get a lot of is Mike Watkins there? Well, we want to talk to you about your property. And so we changed it to, we're looking to buy this property at 123 Main Street. Would you be the owner? And so we've gotten a lot better. Nobody, hangs up on that.
hmm
And we changed that this year to Mike's House Help. And so it was, Do you need help with your house? Just say yes or just text back yes. Do you need one of the ways we help people is by funding the repairs. I need to put in there that we can stop. Um, I don't want to say foreclosure because you don't want to say the F word because that usually gets people riled up. Uh,
Mhm.
but if we can take over payments, we can make payments, or we can rent it from you. One way we help people is by finding tenants, and we just every 2 days we send them a text with, "Hey, this is one of the ways we can help people."
Yeah.
And of course, I've got affiliate links for the funding. I've got realtors that we send leads back and forth to each other. Um, so just trying to get it through them that, hey, we're here to help you in any way that we can, and we're not like those other guys that there's a lot of people will say, stop calling me, don't call me no more, because people will just hound them. And
Yeah.
as soon as somebody says no, we don't want to sell, I take them off the list. I don't want to waste the time.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I want to be like that. I say like a football player, but where they're just running down the field and everybody's saying no, I'm just ducking and moving out of their way. And you want to get to that person that just says yes.
Mhm.
So
So your strategy is once they say no, you write them off the list?
yeah, we remove that lead if we can verify that that is the actual person, because we've
Oh.
gotten somewhere it's been like a person that constantly gets skip traced as the owner because they had the owner's previous phone number.
Mhm.
Um, so we delete the phone numbers, but if we can verify that that's like the actual seller, usually if you get their answering machine and it says, "Hey, this is John Smith," and then you see John Smith is the owner, you can just remove that whole lead, and get it out of there. The whole point is to get leads in, and then if they don't want to sell, get them out, and then if they do want to sell, get to them. And later on, you may think like, "Oh, I don't want to lose that lead. I could do follow up, and they eventually might want to sell later." But chances are, if they are motivated, they're going to wind up back on the list that you're pulling anyway.
Mhm.
If you're pulling like vacant or tired landlords, um, they're going to get back into your system later on. Or if they're getting foreclosed on again, I had some lady that was on the foreclosure thing like 3 times, and they
Oh,
went into
wow.
bankruptcy and halted it. She'd call me every month, like, "We saved it. We're still here." And I had to tell her, like, there's no way, because the mortgage payments were double the rent. The mortgage itself was like 40,000 over what it was worth. I can't believe like anybody would like any bank would even do that in the first place to somebody, but she managed to stall the foreclosure for a good 6 months.
Wow.
Uh, yeah,
Determined.
you just yeah, yeah. But you just want to get it through that you're helping them, and
Yeah.
get them out of there as soon as they say no.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually get quite a few inquiries on my properties in Indianapolis, I guess from wholesalers. And you know what? Maybe I should be responding to them. Now, I just had this idea.
Yes,
Like, no, I'm
I
not interested in selling my property, but I want to buy properties. So, what do you got?
oh, that's good. Oh no. So what I do is I am totally like Jake Peralta from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I get like a whole persona, like I'm going undercover. Yeah, this is Mike Watkins, and then they say, "Hey, you got this house here," and I'm like, "Yeah." I think the last time I had a job at Office Max and had some bad tenants and was just saying whatever. And they sent me the contract, and I went through the whole process. I got the contract, and then it's usually where it stops. And I went through the contract, and this thing said, uh, they buy it at my price that I want, which was like 150, which is retail. Which I was like, oh, they're not paying that. So I'm going through the contract. I'm like, where is it? And I found the stipulation, and it said that they can send a contractor, and whatever that contractor says is what the repairs cost. That will get deducted off of the price, without any new agreement, without nothing. So immediately they send a contractor. Of course, he's going to say, oh, it needs a bunch of repairs, and then the price comes down, and then I am then stuck at that new price and have to sell it to him. And I was like, wow. I haven't
That's
implemented that,
dirty.
but Uh,
That's dirty. Yeah.
yeah. And then one other guy called me and he just said, "Hey, Mike, we were looking at the house last week." And I was like, this guy's not saved in my phone. So I know you're lying. And he said, "Yeah, so we got the agreement. What was that number we were talking about?" And so I said, 150 or no, 175 on that one. And I was telling my team on our Sunday meetings, and I was like, like he could have known that I knew that it wasn't him because I save all the numbers. And the guy said, Henley spoke up. He said, "Well, the seller's not going to know that. If the seller's getting multiple calls from these people, they're not saving them in their phone." So this dude just said, "Hey, Mike, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh, good." Like we were buddy buddy with each other. So there's always something you can steal from people, and so now he's doing that when we call the foreclosures, which is just insane. Like
Yeah.
people
Well,
are
yeah,
falling
I'm
for it.
just thinking now I should just start responding to them and saying like, "No, I'm not interested in selling, but
Oh yeah, you want to buy?
I
Yeah,
want to
that would
buy."
work. Yeah, I've added
Yeah,
a couple
put
people
me
that.
on your list to buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so I've
You
been
had
on
a
people's lists, and
what's that?
they CC their buyers in the email. You know what
Hmm.
that means?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah, get
Carbon
on those
coffee.
buyers lists and just get them sending you property. Uh,
Yeah.
you never know, because I had a wholesaler, and you think like, oh, buying a deal from another wholesaler is bad, but I got this 2 bedroom, 2 bath house, and there was one room, and it looked like they had boarded up the window with drywall, or no, it was what are those old wood planks in the houses? They would put like it wasn't real wood,
Shiplat.
but
Shiplat.
yeah, and I put in a window, and it had a closet, and I was like, oh, now it's a 3-3 or 3-2, and I sold it for like 17,000 to me, and I was like, dude, what a like keeping that like bottled up when I saw that in the house with the wholesaler was like the hardest thing ever. Was like, I was like, oh, I could have put because all it needed was a window for like $400, and it became a way better house.
Yeah. Hey,
Uh,
you have a question. Someone's asking you about cold text to homeowners without making them mad. What to write to them?
uh, Yeah, so I would say if you're gonna make them mad, if that person's gonna get mad, no matter who sends them what, they're just gonna get mad. Uh,
Yeah.
but I would say with the, hey, this is my full name, so this is Mike Watkins. Usually that disarms people, and they're gonna ask that anyway. What's your name? What's your last name? Uh, some reason they think that gets power over you. Um, and then what I would say is just, hey, we want to help you with your house. There's this house here. Would you be the owner? Is a good way to go. You don't want to sound like everybody else. And what everybody else in the text that I'm getting are, you know, um, they say my name, which kind of sounds weird to me, like they don't know me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I've shown my mom, and my mom has said, because my wife and me, I think we're too close to real estate to tell, but I've shown them to my mom, and she says like I was like, well, if you get a text like this, what would you think of it? And she says, well, I've gotten some like that, and they've called me Mike Watkins, and I've told them, hey, that's not me. And she said, if I would get a text that said Edna Watkins, trying to buy her house, which she doesn't own one, but if she did, she said that would feel really weird saying her name in the text. Like, how do you know that?
Mm-hmm.
So just playing it dumb, I think, is a good way to go. And then not telling them how you got them. Like if it's a probate deal, especially if it's a foreclosure deal, especially, don't say that F word. Uh, and then when they do text you back with that stuff, just act surprised, like, oh wow, okay, all right, sorry for your loss. Okay, well, this is good news because I'm, pretty confident we can stop the foreclosure, that kind of thing, and then just getting it through to them that you're trying to help them. And now I
Mm-hmm.
had a cold caller call somebody April last year, and so Tasha called this guy, and he cussed her out, hung up, and then I pulled the entire email list, and emails are kind of like texts. it's a message that you look at. It's not one-on-one directly. And the guy was just completely the opposite way. He was like, let's do this, told me the mortgage amount. It was basically just, giving me all the information I didn't even ask for. Like, here's the mortgage amount, the mortgage payment, how many months it's behind, what they said the payoff was, the arrears payment, everything. Um, and so I think you're not going to get a whole lot of angry people with the texting. Most of them, if they are angry, they're just going to say stop. Sometimes I get the guy that'll say, text me stop, and then they'll say, why do you keep calling me? But I would say that only happens where they keep texting you probably like 0.2% of the time, maybe. I mean, it's very rare that somebody would go past just texting stop. And if your system doesn't take them out automatically, you can just go in there and delete their number. Um, but I don't think it's really that big of a deal if people get mad at what you're saying in a text. Um, but
Yeah,
we
I
all have,
frankly just ignore them. I don't respond.
yeah,
And I feel like that's probably a lot of people who get them. They just don't respond, you know. Like I don't even bother saying no, not interested or stop. I just don't reply. But I did one time have someone text me that they were I guess they because I don't respond, right? So I guess they kept texting me about the property and then finally they were just like they were like the aggressor in the text, you know, fine, I get it. You don't want to sell to me. Like something like that. Like you're lost. And I was like,
wow,
ooh, someone's being clever. You're trying to get me to respond here. I see what you're doing.
wow.
So yeah, there's all kinds. And I feel like I got one recently that said like, "Hey Jen, I got your card. We'll have to get together." And I'm like, I don't know who this number is, but I have a feeling.
Yeah, let's do lunch. Like,
Yeah, I have a feeling this is someone trying to inquire about my property, but they're trying to make it sound like they know me, like we're friends. And I'm like, what card?
that's one thing you should do is if you go to a deal and they have, especially if you get it under contract, but I would always try to get the mail from them, or if they could send me like screenshots of text that they've gotten. Usually they don't want to do that, but they'll give me their stack of mail. And I've met people at events and I've been like, look, I got this deal that you sent a letter to. And you can
Mm.
always like steal stuff from those too. Like one guy put those little fuzzy things in the envelope. And so they were like, yeah, we opened it because there was this little bump and it was just one of these little sticky fuzzy things.
Oh,
I
how
guess for
funny.
scrapbooking. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I think I know what you mean. How, ooh, that's great. Yeah, I do keep my letters. I've been keeping them in a drawer just in case one time I might want to reference them for my own. So,
yeah, and I've gotten people where it's like I know what their address is, but they'll send me that one lady took she scanned and copied the postcard, and then she wrote this big thing, and I mean it was like psycho because it was such bad handwriting, and it was just like, "Do not send this to me," and didn't put her return address on there, which was weird. Like, oh no, now I don't know remember the address that I sent the thing there in the first place,
oh
and
no. Oh
that
no.
was just weird. And oh
Yeah.
no, I think that was early on in my career where I put "We can stop foreclosure" right on the postcard so everybody could see. Probably
Oh,
thought like the mailman
yeah,
thought, oh, they're in foreclosure now. Like,
yeah. No, these are good points. Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't think about these things. Yeah.
uh,
Well,
but
are there,
sending text messages in the first place, you can do that with batch driven, which I've got an affiliate link if you want that. And then the other one I would say is Call Fire. And Call Fire, I think you get a discount through the REI USA website. So check the vendors or the member discounts, I think is what it's called. And you can send out mass texts.
sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
It looks like
right.
everybody's in Atlanta. We've got a Lawrenceville and Duluth, which are like good areas of Atlanta, and then Atlanta, um, which I mean, Atlanta's so big, you can't really just say Atlanta. There's so many markets here. I mean, and of course, it's like a kid with a crayon. I think, what is it called? Gerrymandering. Like all the counties are just weird. I
Mm-hmm.
went into
Mm-hmm.
Dallas is Dallas County, and it's a box. Like, and it
Yeah.
follows the same shape as the city, and same in Orlando.
Hmm. Interesting.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so there's some wholesalers in here from Atlanta. I'm from sort of the outskirts of Atlanta. Um, and then you are looking for wholesalers just in Indianapolis.
Well, for me personally, right now, yes. Though I hope to be venturing out to other markets. I looked at Atlanta real hard one time, but the home prices were a little bit higher than I was comfortable with at the time. But now, that it might be a market I can reconsider again. Um,
I don't
but
know if it's like other places, but here it's so the whole city burned down, and instead of like making all the roads straight, they just rebuilt the roads how they were, and they were old. Every road like zigzags and stuff. And the problem with that is that like houses on one side of the road will be 50,000 more than houses on the other side of the road. So you could be looking at comps on a house over here, and you'd be looking at comps from these lower valued houses.
mhm,
I don't know if it's like that in other states, but I would
yeah.
be wary of going into Atlanta. You need to really probably make sure that you know the area well, or the specific part of Atlanta that you're going in.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds very similar to Indianapolis because it's
Oh,
very block by block. You could even have on the same block, a couple of properties that are nicely rehabbed, almost scrape and rebuild, and then have properties with boarded up windows. So,
my God, yeah. Yeah, it'll be boarded up windows, and then over here it'll be a concrete block with like dark wood, and then it'll have some weird curved glass millennial structure on top. And I'm
yeah.
just like, who, why? Oh, okay.
You're like, you're
So it's
not
not
picking.
just Atlanta. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, no, I think it's, yeah, several cities. Well, unfortunately, I got to get going. I got to put my kiddo to bed, but I really enjoyed being on here talking wholesale because I do need to get in that mindset. Even though I'm not technically a wholesaler, I want to try to find my own deals. And so this has been
Yeah.
helpful for me. And I hope the information I provided about finding markets was helpful to anybody. If they're getting, since everybody's here, I guess in Atlanta, if you guys are getting tired of Atlanta and maybe want to
Yeah.
venture out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
the
definitely.
information I provided was helpful. And I hope all of you in Atlanta connect with my group on Facebook because we definitely have a lot of investors interested in Atlanta. So, and who probably have properties in Atlanta and maybe they're tired landlords themselves and they're maybe
Yeah.
doing it long distance and tired of it about it that way.
What if so if you look at your list of people who own property in Indianapolis, if any of them have live out of state and particularly live in Atlanta, um, that would be really good to reach out to somebody here and they can just knock on the door. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, that's an
yeah,
idea. Yeah.
but yeah. So the 23rd, if Atlanta, if there's too many wholesalers here, like I said, don't move here because we're full. And the roads are riddled with potholes, and traffic is like, I was telling somebody the other day, Atlanta is an hour away from Atlanta, and it really is. It's an hour to get anywhere.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Big
but
city.
if you are in Atlanta, like most of you are, and you want to invest out of state, it's going to be the 23rd, which I think is two
Tuesday.
weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks from now. on the fourth Tuesday of this month at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Oh,
And
I guess
we're excited to announce it.
technically, yeah. Huh. Oh, wait. Wait, before you quote me, because I thought I said the last Tuesday of
It
every
is the
month.
last, and I think by default everything just does the fourth because there's only like 2 months that it's actually going to be the fifth
Oh,
Tuesday.
okay. Yeah, because I
Uh,
thought I saw it on the REI USA calendar as the 23rd, but I could be
the
wrong.
23rd is the fourth Tuesday, and then the 30th is the fifth Tuesday.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me see.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're talking about this because I might have been oh, it is on March 30th. Oops.
Oh, okay. All right. So March
My
30th.
bad.
All right.
My bad, folks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so March 30th. Yeah, the last Tuesday. This whole time I've been thinking the 23rd was the last Tuesday. So I'm glad I got that one cleared up now.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right. Well,
And
thanks so much for having me on, and I'll have to jump on again and hear what you guys are talking about.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Come on in, and if you got any wholesaling questions, marketing that you want to do, market like a wholesaler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be here every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, you're doing this weekly. Wow.
Yeah, I am weekly. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much. I mean, wholesaling is so big.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
really.
Okay. One step at a time for me. All
All right.
right.
So I'll see y'all next week, and then on the 30th.
All right. Great. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks, everybody.